this time, I'd like to thank this great big city that we sit on Indian land. And my people's a little bit out on the coast. I'm a Montauk, Indian from Long Island, New York. I now live with my brothers in Rhode Island almost 20 years. My name is Red Medicine, and we're going to give just a small blessing. So at this time, I want everybody to stand up. I don't know, make a circle. So I'm going to hold hands and make a circle. Aho. Kichimanatu, Creator. Again, we come with you and we ask you to guide us. And we thank you for bringing us all here safely and all who could not make it. We hope on arrival that everybody makes it safe. We'd like to thank the people who put this together. There's a resistance every day, every single day, every second that we stand as people. We ask the Creator to come and heal each and every one of us. I don't know, but just in case you have somebody who's ill in your family, an elder, a young one, you have anybody out there that's fighting for our country, we want to send the blessings to all those veterans, all those soldiers, men and women, people who have still been missing since day one. We call it POWMIAs, people missing in action. We ask the Creator to look over each and every one of us, especially our children, our next generation, to come and heal them and teach them the good road, the way to walk, to respect one another, respect the things that the Creator put on this earth, the fish, the wingeds, the four-leggeds, the little creepy and flying things that we just don't respect, the trees, the oxygen that we get from the Creator that comes into our babies. When our grandmas and our grandpas take off and go to the other side, we still pray for those people that passed us because they teach us our culture. This drum, we do things in a round way. This is how we were taught. The earth is round, the moon is round. We stand in a round circle. We are round. This is much how it's supposed to be. So again, we ask the Creator, as we drum this song to Him, just call a healing song. These songs, almost 1600, goes all the way back to the beginning of time, our language, the Algonquian language. So when we sing these songs, this is before any church ever came to our land. We were the first way of spirituality, this drum, these people. We walk the same way, even though it's 2012. We still living in the biggest city in the world, we're still here, surviving, still living one day at a time. So as we come together, we are sisters and brothers. We're not separate. We're not just an individual. We're all Creator's children. So we bless you. We thank you for having us. This song that goes out through all the beginnings. Tomorrow starts the beginning of Sundancers. I am a Sundancer. For all my brothers and sisters that put their life for each and every one of us, we ask to guide those young men and women wherever time they have to go to that tree. I did it for 10 years, and I'm from right here. So I know when they pray for all of us. And I thank for the food that we had. Thank you for bringing us, and that everyone get home safely when you leave from here. Aho.
on Wichita, which has a long story that I'm not going to tell. So, and I am Lakota. I live here in New York City. I've worked, as she said in the introduction, with traditional Lakota leaders now since about 1990, and always on the level of international human rights advocacy, and with respect to our treaties and our traditional way of life. We are completely separate from what many of you may know as the Bureau of Indian Affairs governments, also referred to as the Indian Reorganization Act governments, by which the United States government in 1934 imposed corporation-like rule on all Indian territories across the United States without the permission of Indian people. In fact, in my reservation in Pine Ridge in South Dakota, they did a vote 3 times to approve these governments, and each time the vote failed, even though they counted anyone who showed up as a vote in favor of the BIA governments. So it's been a complete sham as far as these governments go on the territory. The Black Hills Sioux Nation Treaty Council has been around since time immemorial, basically. It's our traditional form of government. There are 7 council fires of the Lakota Nation, which means 7 bands, 7 different groups. The Chilkas and Ghost Tours, my brother who's here tonight somewhere, is from one of those bands that's more up north called the Minikanja. I'm related to that band and the Kuwichasa. The Ogallala Lakota are at Pine Ridge, and those are the ones you probably heard most about. That's Wounded Knee 1 and Wounded Knee 2. That's Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull. And I always like to remind people that we are the ones that got Custer. So.
Yeah. Good job.
Yeah.
That tradition continues today. About 2 weeks ago, it was our grandmothers on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation who saw trucks from the Keystone XL pipeline trying to sneak across our territories for that wretched declimatizing pipeline. And the grandmas got on their cell phones, and within about an hour, they had a roadblock set up on the reservation. I'm usually talking to Indians, and they're like, yes, you are again. So we continue this resistance. This resistance is alive and well and living in Indian land, and this is all Indian land. And some of our colleagues that are here aren't here tonight, but we participated in some of the Wall Street stuff this last summer. I don't say occupy Wall Street because it's anathema to me to use that term in a land that is already occupied. We talked about decolonizing Wall Street, or I think more appropriately, tearing down Wall Street or destroying it. I did see a poster in the stairwell on the way up at that meeting in the Ridge, which is one of my favorite stations. I'm kidding a little bit. I wanted to describe the Black Hills Sioux Nation Treaty Council in their words. The Black Hills Sioux Nation Treaty Council reaffirms its inherent sovereignty and authority, and that it is a separate and distinct entity from the 1934 IRA governance, and will employ its inherent authority to decision-making and leadership to protect the integrity of and our rights in the 1851 and 1868 Fort Laramie treaties. Which brings me to what I wanted to talk very briefly about tonight. It's my hat. I don't know if you can see from back there, I couldn't possibly myself, but it says United States out of North America. I love wearing this button around the city because, well, of course, most of the time in New York I get no reaction whatsoever because, as we all know, most New Yorkers are in the world and don't have a clue what's going on unless you smell bad or seem dangerous. So, and so, but every now and then I'll be standing on the subway riding along with my button on, and someone will see it, and kind of double take. It's going to be a concept is beyond their ability to entertain that how can the United States get out of North America? The United States is North America. Now, the United States is a fiction. It's a settler nation that has imposed itself in the wrong place. And part of what the work that we're trying to do is correct that. And where we find our alliances in places like New York City and with the Wall Street, anti-Wall Street movement, is in that some of those values are shared, and some of them are beginning to recognize that consumerism, capitalism, and the use of resources without any kind of discipline is something that we all have to resist against, and we all have to fight against. I'm afraid that in some ways, what has been happening is we've been trying, well, the authors tell us that we're trying to fix a broken system. And you can't fix a broken system. You have to tear it down and you have to start over. And I think that's where we as Indigenous peoples come in. We have managed, as the brother said and the sister said earlier, we have managed to survive here for over 500 years now with a great deal of difficulty, but I still report to the traditional chiefs and leaders who have led our nation for thousands of years in New York City, and I attend the United Nations on their behalf. So, we have some knowledge that is surviving and is a way to change the way we look at governance and the way we look at community and the way, most importantly, that we look at relationship. Because in our culture, what it all boils down to is relationship. Our relationship with our family, our relationship with our Tilshpaye, which is our extended family, or clan, as some people, other nations call it, and our relationship with our band and our nation, but also, most importantly, and equally importantly, our relationship with the earth that we live on, and our connection to that earth, and recognizing that Mother Earth is a living, breathing organism upon whom we all depend. And I think that part of what we constantly forget is that right now, in a critical stage, with respect to Mother Earth, she's sending out all kinds of signals for us right now. And we haven't changed anything. Nothing has changed as far as the environmental protections go. And again, this is where we're talking about the resistance. Before that pipeline goes across our land, we will stand up and stop. And that's the kind of resistance I think we need. I always also like to remind everyone that this country is founded on two pillars. One is slavery and one is genocide. And America forgets that a lot and refuses to look at that history. And I think that's ever important. We hear so much now about going back to the good old days, and going back to when America had freedom. And I'm like, when is this mythical time that people are talking about? I got an email today from a friend of mine whom I admire and respect a lot, with some article in the New York Times about, what's going on and why we can't seem to get our values straight. It's like, you've never had straight values. The idea of treaties is important to us because a treaty is a sacred obligation. The treaties for us, which were in 1851 and 1868, we entered into after the United States made war on us, trying to invade our territory, trying to put railroads through our territory without our permission, just as they're now trying to put a pipeline through our territory without our permission. Chief Red Cloud defeated the United States 7th Cavalry over and over and over. And the United States was forced to treat with the Lakota Nation in Fort Laramie in 1868, which set aside our territory as separate and distinct from the United States, never to be violated. It's basically the center of the country. I keep threatening to get a map to always bring with me because I like people to see what the treaty territory is. It comprises parts of 7 American states, 2 Canadian provinces. It's probably the size of France, right in the middle of the country. And those treaties, we have always stood by. we sealed those treaties with a pipe, which to us is the same as ratifying the treaty in the U.S. Congress. But it becomes a spiritual obligation, not of a government, but every citizen, every person who's a member of the Lakota Nation is now responsible for preserving the peace and friendship that was guaranteed in that treaty, and for preserving also our heritage and our culture that exists within the land that is set aside by that treaty. Of course, it was violated within minutes. Gold was discovered in the Black Hills, which is the heart of our country, which is the heart of our spirituality, and which is also the heart of the earth and the resources that we rely upon. Today, of course, it's where you find those wretched presidents on the mountain. And I can never, it's like a mental block. I can never remember the name of everything. Mount Rushmore. And so all of that territory was slowly taken over the last 200 years, 140 years, in a process that they refer to as domestication, a process wherein we have been reduced to a minority group living in the United States. Well, we're not a minority group, and we're not Americans. We're Lakota, or whoever we are, Dene, Shinnecock. We are Indian people, but we have a nation and we have a heritage that is separate from and very distinct from the United States of America. And I think that it's really important that we begin to study this difference, because I think the difference is where we're going to ultimately find a resolution to our situation, if there's one to be found. We use the treaties not because the treaties create our sovereignty. That is inherent, as the document I just read said. Every nation of peoples has inherent sovereignty and an inherent right to self-determination. But the treaties do give us entree into the Western legal world, because there is that aspect wherein that territory has been set aside and preserved. The problem is, of course, enforcing it, which is what we have been trying to do now for about the past 20 years of the United Nations. Indian people first went to the League of Nations in 1918. A Haudenosaunee chief, again from here in New York State, went over to Geneva when they founded the League of Nations. They wouldn't let him in. The people of Geneva, the mayor of Geneva, allowed, through a big ambassadorial dinner for all of the ambassadors that were there for the opening of the League of Nations, and invited Scott, that was his name, to address the group. So even though he wasn't allowed into the League of Nations, he was able to address the world's diplomatic war on the issues of treaties. The Haudenosaunee have, as I pointed out, several treaties also that was violated. In 1977 was the next time that we made an attempt at the UN, and this time it was led by a number of Lakota, Dene, Hopi, and other indigenous nations from South America. Since that time we've been there. In 1982, we started working on a declaration on the rights of the world's indigenous peoples, which passed in 2001. It took quite a while to write it. But it was historic in that it was the first international legal document to have been drafted by the people that it affected. It was not drafted by the nation states. It was being drafted by indigenous peoples from all over the world. And the legacy of that document is that today we are in almost every part of the United Nations. Not the most effective place on earth, we realize. But as far as we're concerned, it's far more effective than anything American. The congressional history, federal Indian law, judicial history of this country has done that. I mean, every time they find a right that we might be able to get around, that they might not be able to narratively have, they pass a law, they domesticate something, they do something. And this has been going on for 140 years. In 1982, when we started going to the UN, that was what the elders decided. And this is beating our head against the wall. It's time to take this outside of some sort of American control. Of course, the UN is under American control too, but its footsteps. I want to also just point out in closing, because I don't want to take a lot of time with other speakers, that Oahu International Justice Project that I work with is one aspect of our Lakota homeland and the work we do there. There's another our sister organization called Oahu, which in Lakota means bring back the bay, that does nothing but work upon our territories. So they're the people that are working on the XL pipeline, working on stopping uranium mining, which is still going on our territories. Our water has been contaminated now for 30 years. We have to come, even though we have the world's largest aquifer in the world under our land, they have to pipe river water in from Missouri because it's been so contaminated by radiation. We have the highest rates of cancer in North America and things like that. So we work on culture and language preservation, and we have a training opportunity for young people called Unite to Fight, where we bring them together for like a week-long camp and teach them about activism. And I usually do a spiel on international stuff, but mostly it's about the history of resistance and continuing resistance. And the reason that is important is that the connection and the relationship that must be between not only what's going on in our territories, but what's going on an international level. Because this we see as the future. In 20 years, where are we as Indian nations going to be? And where is the United States going to be, more importantly? And if we are now trying to lay some kind of foundation for a sovereign, independent, self-determined Lakota nation, that is the objective of the work that we're doing. I really want to thank the organizers for inviting me tonight to speak. I want to thank the drum group very much for the songs, and Mr. Red Medicine for opening with the prayer for us. Also, I want to, as that gentleman did, it's part of our protocol to thank the elders and leaders of the land that we are visiting. I'm a stranger in this country. This is Lenni Lenape territory that we're standing on. So it's my privilege to be allowed to live here and to use the resources of the Lenni Lenape people. And I hope that if I have buttons, if anybody wants some, I need to explain to folks on the subway. I also have business cards, so if you want to sign up for our mailing list, we send out all of the information on the work that we're doing, that the Black Hills Sioux Nation Treaty Council does, the proclamation, they govern by declaration, so we send all of those out. Thank you very much. Keep up.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming here, and I went outside and then get to be with the drummer. I had to say some thanks out there because I saw the star, Ampo. Ampo is the star that holds all the wisdom in Lakota, so I had to go out there and say that and welcome the moon and the darkness and all the powers that are good in the nighttime. I had to do that and remember our place in this time, I guess you would say. In Lakota, we don't have a word for time. There's neither a future or a past, so just now it counts. So in that way, with all good meaning, chante wachte na pe chus apielo, leo kipiki, ohe wachte la. Waklanta ka namampo wa peto venio wase wakintelo, kuchielo honte na ma peso yo. Ka tatu wa kani wakintelo. Makata ha oyang manshio. Chayaka checking on te yako on the makoto ye. Amitapu ye akapu koto ye lokari wa chi shinuto. Echacha to kato reina shima mutani piktana. We ohe omitapu ye yasi. So in those words in Lakota, it helps me to speak in a hard language of English and try to materialize, I guess, in a sense, the physicalness of Native people that are lacking from the consciousness of the people here that are calling themselves Americans, or even those of you who call yourselves Native Americans. I think when you apply the terminology American, you forgot we forget what it really means. Ame is a Latin form of the love of. Rica means riches and wealth. So I think it's a very dichotomous to say Native American, one is materialistic and one is not. And so I don't consider myself an American, never have, never will, because I know my people are older than whatever nation is calling themselves now. And I always ask people, what's the name of this land? And I started out with this because a non-native friend of mine reminded me when I went to a workshop in the Left Forum a few weeks ago. And I was the only native in the whole group about this size, and they all didn't know. They were ready to call it the United States or America, but I said no. It's called Turtle Island. Yep. This is what you are on. And the denial that's sitting in your White House, which someday will be red one of these days, but it's sitting down there. The denial is something that I deal with every day, and myself as well as the people that I encounter, especially with this new and latest fad that I would call the Occupy movement. And I will call it that because, as you see, I think it was a few years ago, it was defined within the United States within the United Nations about the terminology of ownership and occupation. It was defined, I think, by Oren Lyons and a few other people who sat down and did a formula definition out of the United States, out of the United Nations defining what the United States was doing to Native people. Johnson v. McIntosh back in the early part of this forming of this country and how they dealt with Native people. Coming out of the 1493 papal bulls denying that there were any Native people here or human beings. So we're dealing with that mindset still to this day. So when I think about, where is this movement coming from? The Occupy word was defined as Native people only have the right to occupy. We do not have the right to own. The only people in the United States that do not have the right to own. But if I give up my rights as a Lakota, then I can buy and I can own that land. But all you who own property, you really don't own it because you're still paying for it. You're still paying rent, you're still paying. So it's the illusion that they gave to you about this American dream. So I think about, how are we going to confront this denial within the movement of Occupy? I know it's light term, it's only semantics, but in Lakota, when you say something, you are supposed to mean it. It's the power behind the words. So when you say, occupy, it really doesn't mean what you're saying, or hope, it doesn't really mean what we mean, but yet people do not understand where the words came from. So in the language, we sing words specifically to move something because it's energy. In English, we seem to euphemize everything. We say things like global warming, climate change, and the people back on the reservations in Pine Ridge and other places are saying climate crash. It's a whole different terminology. Either you're living the reality, or using the reality for your manipulation. So when you talk about manipulation, all it is finding your place. And I'm going to try to describe this the best I can in that place that I'm talking about. If you imagine this circle, and information is coming from all over the place, but you are in the middle, your body is in the soul. So you are here. You are responsible for that soul, and the information you can come from anywhere in that circle. The other way that we were taken out of, we were shrunk down into that circle, and we were put at the bottom of this column. It says top and the bottom. Top and the bottom. All the data is lined up in nice, neat, marginalized, divided rows of information data. And so when you have that circle and you have the column, when you put that column in the middle, it's missing all the outer information. And you're lined up this way, and you're thinking rationally. And that's the part America does not get. They feel lost. They feel like they own. It's part of this, how would I say, the American dream, where you have to understand that for indigenous peoples, to see the sharing aspect of a language when we don't even have the concept of sharing, because it's piecemealing. When you have the concept of one thing, and it's called giving, it's much different than sharing. So giving is the first generosity of all of you indigenous peoples, everywhere, no matter in Chile, wherever you come from, that idea of only giving. Because that's what Mother Earth, we emulate what Mother Earth is saying. She gives. And we can say, in this linear sense of hierarchical reasoning, or rational thinking, that Mother Earth also takes. That may be true in that thinking process, but when you think about it, she's always giving. She's trying to hang on so that we will get it. And maybe the Occupy motion that's going on, and I call it an emotion because we're not trying to get houses back, because that's never going to happen for indigenous peoples. We're not ever going to get houses back and say we did a do-gooder thing, and we're not going to go down to some Greco-Roman model bank. But I always say this, that you forget who owns the bakery. It's just that whole thing, that whole idea. But here's the catch. The Native people that I'm talking to, 70, 80-year-olds on the reservation, they're saying, how can they say 1% and 99%? How can they say that? It's very exclusive thinking, divisional thinking. As if that 1% wasn't part of the whole percent, 100%. So the whole thinking process is skewed from the beginning. It's almost like democracy, where the majority will vote, but only a few will rule. So it's all about a ruling class, no matter what government they have in place. That's what it's about. So when I think about how are we going to deal with decolonizing the occupation movement, it is about decolonizing. It is about re-indigenizing. Now, how many can you re-indigenize? Because we are born indigenous people. We are born as children that we think in intuitive and dreams and visions of those values of generosity, of spirit. And you see that that's what happens with indigenous peoples. In our ceremonies, there is no color. There is only giving. And they changed a ceremony that I was supposed to be going to tonight, but we're going to do it tomorrow, because they felt it was important to be able to convey that message. So when you include indigenous people, something changes. Something really changes. You think about that. And we'll go ahead, maybe 200 years, 300 years from now, and the policies of manifest destiny and the papal bulls have succeeded, and there are no Native Americans left in the United States or Canada. Nothing. None of us are here. We're all gone. No drums. There'll be pan-Indianism, pan-Indigenism, all the people that are trying to be what you go to see in Europe. You go to Europe, they're dressing up like all Native people. They're dressing up like Native people because they've been brought up with a different mindset. They're called Winnetou in Germany, where they don't have the land, so they adore the Native people from here because they miss the land. Here it's just the opposite. There's a land, but the Native people, we're a little bit on the land. So what I'm telling them is that, Native people are landless, but we're not homeless. That's the deal. We are not homeless. And because you put us on a little concentration camp called Pine Ridge, South Dakota 322, the POW, prisoner of war camp number, that still exists and still hasn't been erased from the books, then you begin to wonder, where does that history start at? And we could go back and say, well, we're all part of it, but right now it's still happening here. We don't see it, we don't want to. So in Auschwitz, when I went last year in November and spent 10 days with a bowl of soup and a piece of bread and wondered how the Germans, the Jewish people, the Polish, the Gypsies, the gay and lesbians, and, all the peoples that suffered them over too. And I was sitting in the gulags, the concentration camps, of Auschwitz and Birkenau, where millions of Jewish and other peoples were exterminated. And I wanted to harken back to when I was a 13-year-old boy in boarding school, and I checked out a book. And I went back 40 years later and checked out the very same book. I was the only native person, the only person to check out this book, because in the old days, they used to stamp a date in it, and you had to sign that in that book. And I went and I looked, and I was still the only one. That book was called Mein Kampf. It was written by Hitler. And if you see in there, you read carefully, how he took the examples of how America treated the native people here and used it to exterminate the Jewish people in World War II. That's part of the story. That mindset of denial. You hear that the Holocaust didn't exist, it didn't happen at places out of Germany. Well, that denial is here. Oh, we see a few brown-skinned people. But what I'm afraid of that us brown-skinned people have lost it. We've been mined. We forget who we are. So we fall into the practice of people of color. Because that works for them. They manipulate the races by the color. We forget about the people of culture. And you meet other people of culture, you understand that there's an instant respect for culture. That's what that 1% that we talk about, and anybody else who's in that denial mentality is trying hard not to keep us in contact with is our own culture. That's what America is founded on, getting rid of culture. And putting it into a class struggle warfare. So out of that comes revolutionary thoughts. In Lakota, you can't even have a revolution because if the way is good. And that all it is being connected and recognizing your place with Mother Earth, rather than parasitically dominating Mother Earth. It's a different mindset. So when you're disconnected and you're not getting what you want, you vote the person in or out of office, and then you tell the one that you get the most benefit from, then you keep voting for that person. And if you don't get it, you call it a revolution. That's the democratic way. A majority, you vote 1% in. But there's a consensus thought process that's going on from the traditional people that can't talk about it, that I see is lacking in a lot of tribal governments and a lot of places that are supposed to be a consensus. And I think about how we defend it. If you defend Mother Earth, then you find out that that is the real war. That is the real war going on. It's against Mother Earth. Regardless of what God you're fighting over, it's the real war against Mother Earth. That's what we are struggling with, fighting about, is defending Mother Earth. Because when it comes down to it, all your religions or all your cultures, whatever you call it, it's not going to mean anything until the human beingness, that the Lakota way, the Lakota Chohan in my case, teaches you how to be a human being first and foremost, and it's always including. You are my responsibility. You are my soul. I have no right to you. I can't own you. I must not disrespect you. I must always tell you the truth. I can't just turn something into something that you can take that's too hard for your ears, because that's a form of lying. I can't beat around the bush. I cannot beat around the bush because that's a form of lying. You have to tell it straight up. That's where the fork tongue idea came from. So we have to understand that. And the experience that I have with being on the radio for 10 years in New York and 10 years in Seattle and Tacoma, the program I did earlier, first 10 years, was called Exposing the Apologetic Predator. And that was pretty much self-explanatory. People did not like that because I was calling not only the white race, I was calling the black race and all the yellow race and even the red race out. I was calling them out. And, I'm still trying to learn how to articulate and not be so upfront and be nice and say we're all one and we're getting along, but that's not happening. Am I supposed to pretend that it is? And this Occupy movement, I think there is something that's most vital missing from it. And we talked about it. It's called Mother Earth. That is not at the first and foremost agenda of that white male-dominated movement. And I'm supposed to get along with them.
No.
They tell me not to talk bad about it, but I'm not talking bad about it. I'm seeing it for what it is. Because you have all these PhD experts writing about an occupation, and everybody's listening to that authority of PhD. Because they control the media. Even in the alternative world, they control the media. So, as a sore thumb, as an indigenous person on an alternative progressive radio station as WVAI, I'm still going to call it out until they remove me, because they don't like what I'm saying about the American mentality. So I wake up every morning and give thanks to everything, especially with water. My first and foremost duty and responsibility is to take that glass of water, which you can do too. We're not going to turn you into Native Americans. We don't want to do that. A human being appreciates that water. That connects us all. So that's what we do. We turn it into medicine. Without getting so spiritual, heavenly good. Without being so heavenly, earthly good. You see? I'm really angry. I'm really pissed off. Because I have to see the biggest oil spill that ever happened in the world. Right here in New York. Right here in New York City, the biggest oil spill in the world. And when we walk on it, and cars drive on it, people understand that oil spill out there is called a road, pavement. That's the biggest oil spill in the world. People say it doesn't do anything to the environment. It's caused most damage. It's caused damage. It's not because we're advanced. It's because I think we lost connection with what we're supposed to be doing. I always bring these a lot of papers with me, and I never get to even read them, and I don't want to do that. But I just wanted to help you understand that there is another movement happening here, and it has to deal with language. And so a friend of mine got together with so many people, Derek Jensen, Glenn Morris, Steve Newcomb, Waziata Wing, some scholars. And we put this thing together called the Unoccupied Movement. Autonomy of consciousness, practical solutions in human equality. And it's about things that I'm saying to you. And how we really must understand and get through the language. We understand that the language is power. And I'm going to talk a little bit about it. It says, I'll try this. The word educate comes from roots meaning to lead or draw out. Out of what? And how about to lead someone out of ignorance? Or to draw out innate wisdom and knowledge. Yet much of the modern educational system is about cramming information in. Granted, one aspect of the learning process takes a certain amount of memorization, but the question begs, what about the smarts that come from simply knowing, which is a form of gnosis? Animals and little children often knew and know exactly what's going on before adults do. And how could this be if they have not been officially educated? And in my humble opinion and experience, this is because the definition of education is limited, as is the process used to so-called educate the young, a process that is more like indoctrination. A real education respects innate talents, skills, and interests, which are thus drawn or led out by a good teacher, thus helping to find a student's excitement and level and passion. Much of the info you can find in this book is about living beings, and since this human being feels that it is the negation of such an education that is part of the problem, in literature we are taught that to give an object human traits is to personify it. I think it's presumptuous. Native, indigenous, and Asian cultures, for example, already recognize and respect the person already in the animal, the plant, or the tree, etc. And to the indigenous, they are not things, but relations with precious gifts, each with inherent wisdoms and purpose given to them by the Creator. The Chinese exercise art of Tai Chi, as some of you may know, often emulates the movements of animals and other beings in nature as a way to teach the two-leggeds how to relax and be in tune with the surroundings. Also, both Asian and indigenous cultures give reference to the head heart. As human beings, we have a natural ability to think, feel at the same time. So language too can be stilted. We have verbs and nouns, but a ball in motion is a kind of non-verb compared with the ball at rest. So while the Occupy movement is raising awareness, the bigger picture needs to be more about deeply recognized and respected. Become more deeply recognized and respected. Example, I used it before, it's great to avoid foreclosure and get one's house back, but if the ground beneath it splits due to earth imbalances, then what's it all worth? So there's a lot of reasons, and I'm going to refer to a little bit about the Lakota thought process as we do not have a word for brain. We don't need a brain. I thought that was pretty funny when I first heard it. We don't have a word for brain. And so, again, our elder Alex Whitecomb described it as this area is called the Nasula. It merely means this is a seed of the heart. This is a seed of the heart. And so this is a different thought process we are using often that we don't understand. And I want to say that as I was growing up, there were a lot of New Yorkers that were coming to my reservation. They came once, and most of them that came stayed. Because they could not handle this lifestyle. And some of them speak Lakota. So you have Lakota-speaking white people with a Brooklyn accent on the reservation. And they won't leave. And you go back to the history of American history, and you find out the so-called captives that were white men, children, and women wanted to stay with the native people. It's documented. There are journals. It's history. So I'm thinking that that's what this is all about, this Occupy thing. It won't work until you include us in the occupation. And I often ask and wonder if they really wanted to include us, why weren't we there to vote for the word occupy?
Yeah.
It's very simple. So now we're not asking, because you know who's going to do our backing for us as Native people, for our backup? Our backup is Mother Earth. That's who's backing us indigenous peoples up. And she wants to hang on to all the colors of humankind. But until you stop disconnecting yourself with the language, because I know it's a disconnecting language, it divides. You can say higher consciousness and go to heaven, but in Lakota there is no heaven and there is no hell. It's right here, right now. It's about consciousness now, not higher or lower. It's right here. We can't think this way. We have to think this way, where everything is alive and everything is equal to who you are. We develop a philosophy called Makasi Tomni, which means to hold Mother Earth within your arms. And we have to evolve that. We cannot revolve that. We have to evolve that. So it's about decolonizing, but it's also about re-indigenizing. Re-indigenize, because that's what this country has made you forget from wherever you came from, your ancestors came from. So again, with that, I guess, I have so many papers to read, but I don't want to. I think I've been harsh enough with you so far. Right?
Okay.
So I think that there's a reality of those who have been with Earth in relationship and those who continue to exist on Earth as a rationale is dichotomous. What I'm saying is that you have to understand there are two ways of thinking. One is relational and one is rational. And it's in the word rational, relational. I mean, being educated in university doesn't mean shit to me.
I agree.
It only taught me to know that I didn't. But when you go and you're connected in spirit, and you're related and you're connected to all, that piece of paper doesn't mean anything. I mean, I took the trip, but I retired from America in 1992. In San Francisco, there were 200,000 indigenous people marching in the streets. And it's the first encounter I had with anarchists. The anarchists were a black bloc of about 300, all dressed in black and white. Everything was black. And they were about at the tail end, almost at the tail end of this march that we were marching from the shores of San Francisco underneath that bridge to the City Hall in San Francisco. And what happened is black bloc of anarchists marched with us. And they stopped and they turned to the left and they went down a hill. And I was very curious. And what happened is 2 or 3 minutes later, as they disappeared, you could hear sirens everywhere. Sirens everywhere. And one person came up and said they turned over 4 police cars and they set them on fire. And I was thinking, wow, you know. And they stopped the Columbus Day Parade. So we as indigenous peoples were doing it the peaceful way. We didn't want to become reactionary because we know that the hatred is one way is to destroy and react as they treat us. The other way is to learn the peaceful way. The anger that we feel is because we know the truth. And truth is much more than hatred of destroying anything on this planet or Mother Earth. So I think, again, even if the anarchy is to do what they say they're going to do, to be against the government and bring it down or whatever the plan is that some elders back home are saying this, and I will quote it with John Trudell. John Trudell said, we're not going to bring down the government. Corporations have already done that. So you might want to think about that process. All they want to do is to keep you away from the process, your natural process of connecting with Mother Earth. By putting you back into the head rather than to the heart, because they know the heart is much bigger than the brain. Much bigger. And maybe that's why we can't understand those people who speak from the heart. Because we're using this foreign language. We're forced to use a foreign language called English. And that language has destroyed our language, has destroyed our ability to live here in and on and with Turtle Island. So you might want to think about, oh, maybe I should go, figure out, and learn an indigenous language. Because it's much more quantum physics than English ever will be. It is much more quantum physics, because it's having to do with relationship. E equals mc squared is the same thing as Mitakli Oyasi, all my relations. So with whatever I said, I just hope that, we understand a little bit, maybe a couple seconds, who knows. But, I'm just here, and hopefully I'll be here tomorrow. I mean, breathing, not at this conference, but breathing. The only thing that keeps me connected is my prayers. Always. I'm always thankful. I'm always thankful that I can still speak. And, do the natural processes, what we're supposed to be. And, Native people were called the first terrorists on this land. Your founding fathers that you hold democracy up so high with, Jefferson and Washington and all those people, they're the ones who call us terrorists. And you're still doing things. You know, so it's a different. I know the language. I know English. Now the trick and the connection is for you to learn an indigenous language, not Spanish, not Portuguese, not whatever Russian, but an indigenous language from here. That's what they don't want you to do.
Yeah.
Then you can get away from the terminology called American. Because if I step out here, I'm stepping into Rome, and I'm stepping into Greco-Roman everything. So where is the country that you thought it was going to be? You know, we take this all down, or Mother Earth takes care of it for us, and then she revitalizes herself. Then that's what I call a country. And that's what's going to happen. We have no choice. There's no water. We talk about where there's no water all the time. You know, and we don't give thanks for its occupation within our bodies. We're trying to get that bank, that president, or that Democrat, Republican to do what we bend their will to do what we want them to do, so we can get the same things our parents had as our forefathers had, and we can build another Mount Rushmore. There's so much that's different, and that's all it is. It's not better or worse. It's different. And we have to go through this for so long now that, frankly, I am just fucking tired of it. I'm tired of this country destroying Mother Earth. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Oh,
these songs that we sing have something to do with nature, has something to do with each and every life that we do. Every song has a purpose. As Native people, this is how a long time, long before the cell phone, the heartbeat of your nation is the drum. All indigenous people have always spoke through the drum in a different way, from nation to nation, from country to country, from person to person. I still need the mic? Okay. You're all in trouble now. Yeah, this don't even work. Oh. You can't see that. You can't give me the mic. Well, these songs that we sing, like I said, it's being that we are from this area, and you're sitting in an area that's over 700 years old. The Eastern people of First Life. These songs goes all the way back to, we can't even say great grandparents. It's greater than that. Then we have new ones that everybody have different type of music. Everybody like, as Native people, we have our rock and roll, we have our hip hop, and we have our green grass ceremonies. We have spiritual song, that we have, and what we're going to do, I'm going to sing a song that's called Sunset. And what it is when we sing these songs, before we go to bed, before you wake up, you have to give thanks, because the day is not given to you. We have to live every day like it's your last day. And we hope that whatever we do in a good way, will reflect off of us, just like in the water. If you're looking in the mirror, sometimes you don't look at yourself. We're the teachers, and our little ones, they rely on the truth, and they can feel it. So whatever we do, we try to do in a good way. So as this drum go around, maybe deep down in your heart, you might have to dance a little bit. Oh, boy. You haven't felt anything unless you went around the drum. So, all right, what we're going to do, we're going to introduce everybody around the drum. That way you know who they are. Let's start with you.
Jessica General Hart.
Okay.
Russell Roman Coyote, First Nation Cherokee.
Nisa Quantum, Two Orders, Narragansett, Chief of Wachana Band in Narragansett. Spirit Board.
Tammy Ross.
And I'm Artie Crippen. I'm the Shinnecock Montauk, and I am the shaman of the nation. So as we go and sing these songs, if you want to come up, for some reason, I don't know wherever you've been, if you ever been to a powwow or any kind of ceremony, that makes pain go away. It makes you forget about the bills that you got to pay tomorrow. We didn't pay them today because we got to pay tomorrow. So if you want to come around and just tap your feet, come and dance with us. Yahweh, Yahweh,
very honored to be able to address you all here tonight. First, I'd like to say Katapatush, which is thank you and Narragansett to Firewall for allowing me a few moments just to share, I guess, some words that creators placed upon my heart to share with the audience. I was kind of trying to figure out what I was going to say for the past week or so after she invited me. And I decided that instead of trying to figure out what the proper words would be, I would just speak from the heart, as our brother said earlier when I got here, and I allowed the Creator to place upon my heart and share His word with you, not mine. As Firewall mentioned, I'm not a direct descendant. My grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, Chief Sunset was her uncle. I'm actually a descendant of Canonicus, who was also a great chief of the Narragansett Nation. But I want to focus on a few words that stick with me that were shared by Chief Sunset, who was indeed a great chief in the area for the Narragansett Nation. And he had a saying. He said he was a modern native, and by that he meant a native who walks in contemporary times, but forgets not the faith of his forefathers. And it is indeed those words that I try to apply to my own daily walk as we walk amongst these very, I guess you could call them turbulent times. When we think of natives, you know, we have a very Hollywood perception of it, I think. You know, we came and we ride on horses and we do our walk flies and we're thought of as savages and people who came to destroy and terrify. And I think that if anyone's taking the time to actually educate themselves about Native peoples, you know that that couldn't be any further from the truth at all. What we were was warriors. We still are warriors. But not in the contemporary sense of what people think of warriors today. To natives, and I think to all indigenous people, a warrior is not someone who walks around with a weapon, who has the biggest gun or a knife, or who can intimidate or come into an area and occupy it. That is a thug or a gangster. I believe that a warrior is the exact opposite of that. To me, a warrior is anybody, man, woman, child, who follows the path that Creator has set them on, stands up for righteousness and truth, even if they have to stand alone. And that's why I'm very grateful and feel very humble that I was able to connect with the individuals that I have connected with. We were able to form the Wachumchick Warrior Society drum. Indeed, this is a spiritual drum. Because all things are spirit. And we have lost connection with that. We think of things in the physical sense. We think of things in terms of material things. That's how we think of wealth. How many material things we have. How big is our car? How big is our house? When we know that the real richness and when someone is really wealthy is when they're wealthy in spiritual things. And spiritual blessings and spiritual riches are not the same as material riches. You don't have to have a big car to be full of love. You don't have to have a big house to have wisdom. You don't have to have anything material in order to be rich spiritually. So if there's anything that you can take from my words tonight, is that we need to get past where we're at right now, which is focusing totally on the physical and how we, I guess, quench those desires and those thirsts and start to think back towards what it means to be spiritually righteous. What does that really mean when we say we're spiritually righteous? And that's for each of us to decide for ourselves. No man can tell you how to live your life because you are held accountable for your own actions and your own conduct to Creator above, as I am, as we all are. And He does not look at us differently because of our skin tone or for what nation we're from, what our gender is. He doesn't look at any of that. He looks at our spirit. And He wants to know, where is your spirit? That's the question I want to pose to everyone in here. And I think that most of the people here are at least on the right track to trying to figure that out. There's been a lot of very wise words shared today, in particular, about the occupation movement. And I share a lot of the sentiments that were shared earlier. When I first got involved in it, I was very excited. You know, wow, this is kind of our generation's time to stand up and address the problems that are going on. And it seemed to be a cross-cultural, cross-color thing. But then when you really got involved in it, you saw that a lot of the same issues that were going on outside the occupation had somehow find their way into it. I've seen racism in our occupation. I've seen issues with gender. I've even seen class warfare within our occupation, which really makes no sense to me because we're all part of the 99% of what are these things doing here. So this is my challenge to the occupation, as the brother said, to start thinking about being reconnected. I would even go as far as to say that a lot of the occupation just has to do with people feeling they didn't get their fair share of the pie that they worked really hard for. So it's not even so much about equity or equality, it's about the fact that they're in a situation that they don't like, and this is an opportunity for them to address that for themselves personally. And my question is to everyone in the occupation, if things were to change tomorrow, if everyone was to be able to go back and have their nice house with the yard and the 2 cars and the driveway, would this fight continue? No. And if the answer indeed is no, then we really need to look at what this whole movement is all about, the goals that it's trying to achieve, and really what's driving it. So I don't want to take up too much time. I just want to say, Montaukett to you all, thank you for starting that path, for starting the dialogue, because indeed I think too many times we start to take action without really understanding what it is we're acting on, or really understanding what the goal is that we're trying to achieve. And if we don't take the time to dialogue, if we don't take the time to understand and respect one another, then the cause is doomed from the very beginning. With that being said, once again, Akuni, Ka, Peace Ganache. Peace be with you all, and I will see you soon. Thank you.
So it's actually, so I was brought up to be humble, so it's a little bit embarrassing for me to say this, but she wanted me to say that it was me and her and actually Lauren. Lauren, are you here still? There you are. Beautiful Lauren. She wanted me to say that it was actually us 3 who sort of started this Native resistance network, and but we've been working with a whole bunch of other magnificent people since then, but it's sort of hashed out some of the experience. So, Firewolf, just to introduce her, is a Dene activist. Some of you might know the term Navajo better. Dene is the traditional term. She was born in Tuba City, Arizona. Her clans are Bitterwater, going for Red Clay. And her father, Jimmy, Bijoloni, was an occupier at Alcatraz in 1969. She's a member of AIM, Black Mesa Coalition, and Occupy Wall Street. So please welcome Firewolf.
Thank you, Assistant Wells. But we work with Native allies of just about every race. Basically, we're dedicated to informing and educating the public about Native issues, indigenous issues, not just in North, South, and Central America, but all over the world. To a lot of people talk over the years. And tired of all the lies, I wanted to do something. And I finally found a group of people that are blessed enough to say it, also feel the same. There are a lot of things going on in our communities. Those of you who don't know about the pipelines that are coming down from Alberta, Canada, all the way through the Black Hills to the Gulf of Mexico. They were basically this tar sand slurry is going through them. It's polluting the land, polluting the water, and they just want to build more. It's not benefiting anyone except the corporations and the government. But then again, why bother with the Native people? They never cared about that before.
la energía de Quetzalcóatl. Atecocolis,